just before Christmas, I decided it'd be a really fantastic idea to go for a sail on this day when we had very, very, very high winds. And it was also coming from the west. Now, if you are familiar with Grafham Water, the reservoir is wider east to west than it is north to south, which basically meant that the wind was coming straight down the reservoir, meaning we were getting some pretty big waves. And for context, Grafham's about 3 miles long, I think, 3 miles wide. So these waves were getting pretty big. Now the club is sort of in the middle, so when we were launching it was not too bad, but once you got out into the middle the waves were intense. Now I'm having this I'm having sort of the devil and the angel on my shoulders telling me this is a terrible idea, you're sailing a really stupid boat for conditions like this, and you're single-handed, so if you do get yourself capsized it's just harder to recover from. The 4,000 just ahead of me there, they they let go of their mainsail while it was wrapped up, and it rolled up and it came flying towards me. Just to give you a scale of how windy it was, I think the windiest gusts were punching into the 30s, 35s. So yeah, very, very intense. Now, luckily someone was able to give me a hand getting launching. I was kind of not sure how I would do it myself to get the board in a little bit, especially because once you jumped in it was pretty much straight onto a reach, so you wanted to be able to be ready, prepared, ready for it, you know. But yeah, I'm just trying to keep the boat on its trolley at this point. Every time I let go it was bouncing up and down. A few of the double-handers had launched. There was a few 4,000s, a 500, and a Europe and a laser radial as well on top of that. And they made it look like it was absolutely going for it. Watching the 500 go downwind with the kite up, and they were just flying over the waves. Now, I decided to give it a go. I thought, you know, it looks like it's calming down maybe a little bit. And luckily, someone was able to give me a hand getting off on the water, because I was definitely going to struggle on my own.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
I've been sat here contemplating it.
I'll tell you right fucking now.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Shout out to this guy for giving me a hand. He was out in a 2000 and had some breakage and said it was quite intense. We were trying to find a good gap in the gusts to launch me, so he helped out big time. So shout out to this guy, really appreciate it.
It's just
Go for it. Yeah.
Alright, moment of truth.
I'm actually going to clip that on while I can get to the front. I never think you can take to the side, sweet.
Alright. Now, time to bear away, jump over the back, and hope for the best. Just waiting for the perfect moment.
That's the thing, when I move the trolley, it's like a nice move quick.
Alright, so time to get ready, get myself ready to go, so as soon as I jump in, I can get going. Here we go. Moment of truth. Doesn't look so bad from this nice little bay, but you'll see in a second that it is a completely different story. Now, the thing I had sort of forgotten was, in a single-hander, if you capsize, especially to windward, or the boat turns itself into windward, it's very difficult to get back in without the boat capsizing over again. And that's where a double-hander is very useful, because even if you are righting the boat to windward and it's likely to fall over again, if someone is in the boat, like your crew's holding onto the tow straps or something, there's a really good chance they can probably counterbalance it and keep it upright, and then you as the helm or whatever can climb around the back and climb in. I didn't really appreciate this until I got wet. But yeah, you can see already how wavy it is. Just look at how intense this is. I'm still pretty high on the trapeze, but immediately I'm not even ready to go and the boat's already trying to take me off. I've learnt a few things from the Datchet Flyer here about bearing away for those gusts rather than trying to play the main too hard, because the main's already pretty out as it is. But I'm already absolutely flying, and I can see a 500 going downwind, and I'm thinking, please jive. I don't think I can do much. Oh, I nearly got hit by one of the waves there as it came to windward. Now I've got myself down pretty much to the knot. All that's really done is just get my center of gravity lower to prevent me from wobbling around so much. Not really doing huge amounts for the trim. But I'm absolutely flying. Having my foot in that rack is really helpful, but I definitely wanted to get some cooler looking footage and get my foot on both feet on the racks. Yeah, I'm getting pretty quick towards the start line. I'm thinking if we're doing a race, all I've got to do is point it at the start line and then I've just got to come in. But yeah, absolutely flying. Now, I had a little less kicker on than what I had at the Datchet Flyer, and if you've seen the photo, my mast is incredibly awkwardly bent. Now, I actually should have had more kicker on. What I've learnt since is because of the square top nature of the 600 sail, and that roach, I believe it's called, what happens is the boat tries to nosedive when you're on these really broad angles, and well, more correctly, when the main's really far out, and the 600's got no weight in front of the mast whatsoever. So it's really hard to... when it wants to nosedive, it just nosedives, and there's nothing to really stop the boat from doing it unless you get your weight back. And you'll see in a minute I have some issues with this, but I'm really playing that main and working on the steering just to steer the gust. But yeah, there you can see quite a few white horses as it's coming down the west side of the reservoir. Now I'm thinking, right, you can see, I think that's a 4000 over there, and the committee boat is nearby. You can't quite see them, but I'm thinking, right, I'm ready for a race. I think they said like 11:30 start, maybe. So I was leaving it to the last minute. You can see quite how tight my sail is, even with the kicker not fully cranked on. But I am thinking now, like, I need to do a tack and point in the other direction. So far, I've not thought too badly of this. You know, I haven't capsized, I didn't pitch pole. You know, this is seeming okay. But that was just the start. As you've probably seen from the title of this video, this was possibly one of the worst sailing experiences I've ever had. Mainly because once I had fallen out of the boat, I could not get back into the boat. And you'll see what I mean in a bit. Now, I've done my tack, that was pretty clean. I think while I'm trying to get myself down to the knot, just so that I'm all ready, because last time when I wasn't on the knot, it got hairy quite quickly. Trying to get the board up a little bit as well, I think. Yeah, I think the board's up a little bit just to help there, a little bit punching through upwind. However, I kind of wish I put that down because, oh, there we go. This is the issue I have in the 600, especially when sailing on these breezy days. I had the exact same problem at Datchet. As soon as you just come to a nice stop on a close reach, the boat is so prone to capsizing, especially when you've got lumpy waves like this. The main didn't even have any power in it. All it takes is a little bit of puff in the top of that square top and it falls over because of how tall the mast is. The righting moment from the top of that mast is dangerous, you could say, or quite lethal. But yeah, get the kicker off, get the downhaul off, make that sail very floppy so when I try and right it, it doesn't just try and fall back down again. This wasn't too bad, this righting, to be honest. You know, it doesn't even... I mean, it looked pretty bad when we looked to the right a second ago. But yeah, I'm able to get back in the boat pretty easily here. Not too much drama, really, all things considered. But, yeah, and I pop myself back in. Not too bad. Now, let's try reaching back in the other direction. I think I might have decided to myself, probably not club racing now. I need to get that kicker back on. Boom is all over the place. Look at how high that boom is. The leech is very, very loose at the moment. It's kind of hard to tell, though, from this sort of warped camera angle, the leech tension. You kind of need, when I've got the stick that hangs, allows you to get a higher angle further off the back of the boat, that helps you see the twist, because you kind of need to be like, it's almost like your own coach boat that's following you behind, but you've also got to be wary of the warped lens. Right, we're ready for another reach. This time, I'm a little bit higher, so it's a little bit of a higher angle, tighter angle, so the boat doesn't quite get going as nicely as it did last time. And it's also a little bit worse for the waves, so I'm sort of getting hit by them, slowing me down, whereas I was sort of surfing them the last time, which was nice. Now, absolutely flying, both feet on the rack, but I'm trying to bear away for this gust, and I end up just nosediving straight into the next wave. And I rotated 180 degrees during that pitch pole, and I hit my thigh against the side of the bow. It left a humongous bruise, which everyone at the Grafton Grand Prix got to see in the changing rooms, whether they wanted to or not. Couldn't really hide it. Yeah, there's nothing worse than trying to have a communal shower and your entire leg's purple. But yeah, that was pretty painful. At the time, the adrenaline was running, so I didn't really feel the pain. It's when I came off the water eventually. Now, this is where everything goes wrong. I, from this point onwards, was not able to get back in the boat on my own. Every single time I tried to right the boat, by the time I had got myself onto the centerboard, it had rotated itself back towards the wind, so then it would capsize back over. And then I mentioned earlier about the 600 having no weight in the bow, which means that when I right it, it has a habit of doing this sort of it's like a wheelie. I like to call it a heelie, where the nose goes right up in the air like that. The stern goes completely in the water and it does a flip. Also means I get to swallow a nice amount of water, but you can see how big these waves are. It's not making it easy. It's pretty cold too. This was like, what, the 22nd of December, I think? So I think that puts in perspective just quite how cold it was. So at least the boat's now not pointing to windward, but the thing is I'm running out of energy. The swimming is wearing me out. I'm not as fit as I used to be. I'm trying to get onto that it's the same issue I had at Datchet. Trying to get onto that centerboard is what fundamentally stopped me from being able to continue. I knew that if I capsized again, I wouldn't be able to get on the board, and that would be it. And that's kind of what happened here, and this is a really good learning point for me of, in conditions like these, it's not the sailing that's the hard bit, it's if I can't get back in the boat, recovering a 600 is very difficult. And so I'm going to definitely be more mindful of that going forwards. Saying that though, this was a good learning experience, and I was able to use that in some of the windy videos I've done recently to be better. Now the issue I've got here is, you can see, is if I let go of the rack, the boat's going to fall over again. I think I've got too much downhaul on, which is making the top of that square top very tight, and I can't quite get it off. Now what I need, again, good learning point for me, that rib that was sort of keeping an eye on me, I needed them to hold the front of the boat so that I could climb around the back and then climb over the back. On a 600 with narrow racks, you can't, at least I can't fit in between the racks. You can in the wide boats, typically because the wide boats are sailed by smaller people, but with a buoyancy aid on and a trapeze harness, it's pretty much impossible to climb in that gap, and it's dangerous. I once got stuck on a tack where I missed and I fell through the gap, and I got stuck in the water, so it's definitely something you want to be wary of. Now, as you can see, boat's capsized over again. I've now got to climb on the centerboard again. Not great. And you'll see this is a bit of a trend. And looking back at my GPS data on Strava, the boat was just slowly drifting closer and closer to the east side of the reservoir, and that's where the dam is. And I was getting concerned that if I couldn't get this boat upright and the rib couldn't help me, I was going to hit the reservoir and damage the boat. Especially considering this is only the hull itself is less than a year old. The other issue is, the closer I got to the reservoir, the longer the fetch was for the waves, meaning the waves were getting really quite large. And when I was sitting on the bottom of my boat, a bit later on, I was feeling very, very nauseous, very out of energy. It was quite a grim experience, and at the point I was really kind of going, how am I going to get this boat recovered? I got the sail down a little bit later on, but the issue was the boat is so tippy that it didn't want to stay upright. Now, what I've learned from this experience is if I had got myself back in the boat, I probably could have sailed it back in, especially upwind, where it's a lot easier to deal with nosediving and so on. The issue I had, that was nasty. Now what happened here is I got death rolled. It does the little up in the air thing, and then I get knocked miles away. And as you can see, long swim back towards the boat, really struggling here, and the rib actually had to pick me up in the end because I could not keep up with the boat, as it was the hull itself was acting like a sail and was just pushing it further downwind. They closed their lake not long after this, ironically. Not a shock, really. The coxswain had to come and rescue me in the end. Now, the thing that I learnt about this rescue was normally with a 600 in any normal conditions, you can put the rack on top of the rib and then sit on it, and then you can slowly drive the back, and that's normally a good way of not damaging the boat, but also keeping the boat stable. Because if you tow the boat from around the mast, which you shouldn't do really because of how the mast sits on a pin, I'd be worried about the mast getting pulled off. But also the eye at the front for the forestay is also, I wouldn't rely on that being particularly strong. It's quite a small bolt. It doesn't go through a huge amount of fiberglass. I would not rely on that to be pulled from a rib. So really the technique you want to do, and this is what worked for us, was having 2 ropes, one tied to each rack, effectively creating like a bridle, which then the rib had a tow line tied to that. So it meant that when the rib towed me, which was a horrible tow because I was just getting launched over the waves as we had to go straight into them, and there was a video someone took of me just getting absolutely obliterated by them, and I'm just sat there in the bottom of my boat steering, trying to keep it going in a straight line. But the main takeaway from that was that the bridle was having it towed from the racks is probably the best bet from not damaging the boat, but also giving the boat stability so that it goes nicely. In any other conditions, I would recommend putting the rack on top of the rib and sitting on the rib. If you can maybe tie the rack to the rib, that was ideal, because we tried this originally, but it didn't really work because the waves meant that it was really, really hard. I kept letting go as I was running out of energy. And yeah, it was just becoming very, very challenging. So yeah, hopefully some of you can learn from this as well. This was an eye-opening experience for me. I'd never quite got myself into this much trouble in a 600. The 4000s made it look like it very easy, but I guess their boats are all more stable, but also having a crew to help you right the boat and get it back upright is very, very helpful and not something I had. So on a day like today, would I sail the 600 again? I might think twice about it. I would maybe take out maybe my 400 with someone, as that is one, a very stable boat, but 2, has a crew. Oh yeah, there's the boat sailing off on its own. Or I would take out my laser radial, which I don't really use too much, mostly my partner, but that could be a better option on a day like today where you want to be safe at the same time as having fun.